welcome to Strategy and Future. We are still here at the Warsaw Security Forum, and with me now is Mr. Shafqat Ali Khan, the Ambassador of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan to Poland. Your Excellency, thank you for accepting our invitation. It is great to have you here.
Thank you very much. It's really a privilege and honor to be here on your show. Thank you very much.
Your Excellency, we are in Poland, far away from world ocean, far away from Western Pacific, where we have the rivalry between the naval power and the land empire. Since you are from Pakistan, much closer to the epicenter of those events, tell me, how do you view this? Would you view this still through the prism of classical geopolitics, or is that obsolete as a way to look at the world?
I would say geopolitics has never been obsolete. It never will be obsolete. It's a way to examine international relations, the foreign policy, or for a country to plan its strategy and its own plans and objectives, basically. So in that sense, I would, at times people argue that maybe geopolitics is a diabolical way to look at the world. I would disagree with that. What geopolitics does is it explains basically the reality of power with geography and how to look at the world. It's not prescribing anything. It's basically telling you how to look at it. So if I look at from Pakistan's perspective, we have a very unique location. It is, to begin with, we are at the confluence of three very different systems, subsystems I would say. There is South Asia, there is West Asia, there is Central Asia. So Pakistan is at the juncture of these three regions, or three systems, subsystems I would say. Then we have a long coastline on Arabian Sea. We are next to the Persian Gulf, from which the most of the world's oil flows, and of course the Indian Ocean. So this gives us a very, is kind of a challenging geography, but herein also lies opportunities for us. And similarly, I would give example of, for my Polish friends, in a way, just like Poland's geography or geopolitical position, it's critical. It's a very strategically located country. And this new concepts and the new debates which are taking place, for example, Eurasian connectivity and these ideas, these will never be complete without Poland. So it gives you opportunities, but it adds challenges also. Similarly for us, it's a very unique geography, unique geopolitical setting, and it is very challenging, but it offers us opportunities also. So looking from that, one point which I want to highlight, which I just mentioned, was the Eurasian connectivity. So again, you go back to if you want to look at it from the geopolitical prism, what Mackinder wrote in terms of the Eurasia, you see its relevance or resonance even today, perhaps even more acutely. So what he was talking about, these land powers coming together, because he was writing in the backdrop of invention of railways and the railway lines being laid everywhere. So that reality of Eurasian connectivity could never come about for a long time because of political disputes. So first you had the Chinese struggle for its own, the revolution, then the Second World War, Japanese occupation, and then of course the Second World War, the Soviet Union was there. And then of course the political disputes between China and Soviet Union after the late 50s. So this post-Cold War period, that's what we see, these political disputes are melting away. And the demand of the world trade and connectivity is such that piece by piece, one step at a time, you see this Eurasian connectivity becoming a reality. So we look at it from the perspective that this is our chance, not for Pakistan's prosperity, but for common prosperity. And this prosperity will engender security also. So the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which is the flagship project of Belt and Road Initiative, we look at it as a project for our prosperity, development, cooperation, but also this provides us this historic opportunity to link up with the Eurasian land bridge, which is connecting, which is going, I mean, it's not going to be, it's not a fantasy anymore to imagine a train moving from Tianjin through Poland all the way to Hamburg. So these things are becoming a reality. So we want to link up So the China-Pakistan economic corridor opens for us a door to link up to that also. But then we have to take into account the incipient Sino-US rivalry also. But that is what is playing out in Pacific. It cannot be divorced from what is happening in Eurasia. But if you look at it in that sense, so what was First World War, that time Germany was the land power, Britain was the maritime power. Then the Second World War and the Cold War, so Soviet Union was the land power and the US was the maritime power. And the theater of contention was Atlantic. So now you see that shifting. China is the land power and US is the maritime power, and it's the Pacific theater now. But one change is that if this connectivity comes about, it will create that prospects of win-win cooperation, because there are so many countries which are going to benefit from this. So this is the way we look at it in broad strokes.
But then there also is, of course, the reality that the classical US geopoliticians were very afraid of, from Khanem to Spikeman. And that is precisely that. That is the ability to link up the entirety of Eurasia into a singular space with a viable transport infrastructure. And this would be a reversal of the 500-year-old trend that began with Vasco da Gama's of this world. Do you think there is a chance that the US would be willing to accept this, to accommodate to this, to go silently into this quiet night? Or
let me put it this way. Geographically, politically, this connectivity or this Eurasian connectivity, let's look at it as an inevitability. Because the modern means of communication, the demands of the trade, so many countries in this area which want their share of prosperity. So this is, and the political disputes are dissolving. So this is going to come about. This would be like fighting geography or fighting history, trying to stop it. So I think if you look at it from this perspective, there are ways to accommodate it. It should not be a zero-sum game. I mean, the entire world trade is not going to shift to railways through Eurasia, but a sizable chunk will go there. And imagine the prosperity it will yield to countries like Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, and all the way up to Poland and then to Germany. And let me give you a specific concrete example from my country's perspective. So we have overcome this challenge of terrorism, and we are consolidating our gains. So at this time, we look at it, if you imagine from Pakistan's perspective, this gives us prosperity, this gives us economic development, this BRI projects and the connectivity projects. So this will help consolidate our gains and promote peace. So it should be a win-win. Similarly for Afghanistan, as soon as the settlement comes in, Afghanistan will be connecting us to Central Asia and beyond. So this will also promote peace. So these projects are needed to give people hope as they're coming out from these challenges, overcoming challenges of terrorism and this. And this gives hope for all countries to cooperate. So here we have to find ways to accommodate each other, because this, frankly, this connectivity is an inevitability now. You can't stop it. So if we agree to that, and then linked to that is not like one power controlling everything. There are many countries in it, but there is shared and common prosperity. So if you look at it as inevitability and a positive signal and a positive prospects for prosperity, common prosperity rather, then we can try to reconfigure. How can we find a way to address the concerns if any other countries have concerns about it? So I gave you a specific example of Pakistan. US is an old friend of Pakistan. We have had a very close alliance relationship, and we may have our differences, but we have a 70 years old relationship with the US. And it's in the US national interest to have stability in our part of the world. Okay, so if these projects, I'm giving you one example, so these projects are bringing that stability and prosperity, it is win-win for everyone. It's win-win for Pakistan, it's win-win for China, it's win-win for the US. So we have to look at it in that perspective, I think.
Your Excellency, the debate we have witnessed not that long ago about the China international order, one theme that I thought was interesting was the definitions and different understanding of words and of terms and of ideas. And when perhaps part of this, or perhaps some of the fears that the US has, at least on a certain level, are also related to different conceptions of what winning means. What is victory for the Chinese might be different to what victory is to the US. And you as a representative of Asia, do you think that could be the case? Do you think that at least part of the penumbra is related to this?
I don't know. It's a very complex question. But let me tell you again from our perspective. We are a neighbor of China. Historically, we have been a neighbor of China. It's not a new country for us. I'll just give you one example. In the historic Silk Route, it was an east-west thing connecting Europe to China. Okay? During the time of Mongol invasion of these Central Asia regions and everything, this route broke down. At that time, a new route started, which was from Kashgar through the coast of Pakistan. The present day Thatta is a town. So this route used to come down to this port on the present day Pakistan. Then from there the ships used to take it to Europe. So what I mean is, for us there is nothing new in it. So we look at it in the historical terms, not of power politics, but as trade and prosperity. That's the way we approach it. So everything, we don't look at it in terms of choosing between one power or the other. But this comes naturally to us. China has developed its progress. It's a very old friend of Pakistan. It has invested a lot in terms of our development, growth, infrastructure development. So we look at it like that, frankly speaking. So maybe then if you want to go deeper, if you look at it from the point of view of a conflictual prism, then all these issues come up. But I don't have a straight answer for that. I mean, how do you define victory in one particular culture or one particular strategic tradition or one particular strategic environment? So, but what what I'm explaining from Pakistan's case is maybe it can offer you a microcosm or a way to look at it. For us, to repeat myself, for us it's not a sui generis thing, it's not a new thing, it has been happening. And another link to that, I'll give you another thing to reflect on. Indus Valley, which is present day Pakistan, was historically a trading area, very prosperous. So what we suffered at the hand of colonialism or the Western imperialism was when the Britain came, and from the north the Russians came. So there was an iron kind of a border, and this area became marginal because the trade route stopped, and this became the poor area. Because it was poor, it used to provide military recruits to the British Army. And most of people who fought in the Second World War, First World War of the British were from the present day Pakistan. So we think that that historical aberration of these trade routes stopping, we are reversing that. We are going back to the natural rhythm of history of our part of the world. That's the way we look at it.
And this is strategic flaws against enabling progress, really.
Exactly. I agree with you on that. Yeah.
Your Excellency, thank you very much for this interview, and we hope we'll have a chance to continue our discussion at one point in time. Surely,
it's really a pleasure, and I wish you all the best for this wonderful venture you have undertaken to increase, to spread these ideas about, it's not just about a certain way to look at the world. And I often, whenever somehow or the other there is a historical burden, whenever we talk about geopolitics, certainly some people think that, oh, this is something very wrong. You are preaching something. We are not preaching anything. It's a way to analyze the world and the way to look at the world. But wonderful, and it has been great to be with you, and of course I look forward to meeting you more often. Thank you very much.
Your Excellency, thank you again.